What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Watch Darius TV. I am back with another review, and this one is of Sisu. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and share this video for all reviews of the latest movies, TV shows, and albums. So let me just begin. So this movie, I saw the previews of it when I went to go see John Wick 4, which I will be doing a review of too, also coming soon. And I saw the previews of this movie, and I was like, yo, this looks pretty amazing. And I will say that this movie was actually pretty good. I would say it had a lot of action in it. It was, I don't really see too many movies like this, like a old type of movie that takes place in like the early 1900s type of war movie. I don't typically watch movies like this too much, but I would say this was actually a pretty good movie. Let me start with the review right now. So the movie starts in the year 1944, and it's chopped up into different type of chapters. Chapter one is called The Gold, and there's this character. I'll be honest, I cannot pronounce his name very well. I could barely pronounce the name of the actual movie. I hope I said it right. I think it's called Sisu. I don't know. I thought that was the main character's name, but his name is Tom. I can't pronounce it, so I'm just gonna call him Ant. I'm sorry. I cannot pronounce what this name is. I'm not sure if this is German. I don't know, but I can't pronounce it. So I'm just gonna call him Ant. If anybody's ever seen this movie and you know how to pronounce the character's name, please comment the pronunciation. But anyway, so the character Ant has left the war, that war that was going on with the Nazis, and he seems to be living off the land. He's by himself, just living off the grid, I guess. He may have been married, because he has a ring, like it looks like a ring on his finger, maybe a wedding band. I'm not sure. So could have been married. While digging, he finds gold and decides to travel with it to, maybe I guess clearly cash it in. We get into chapter two, and the Nazis they seem to be introduced, and it seems like the action is going to basically start once they get into the movie, because the movie starts pretty slow in the beginning. And comes across some Nazis while traveling. The Nazis seem to be holding some people captive in one of their convoys. One attempts to shoot him, but the leader says he'll die anyway. While Anne is traveling on horseback. While traveling, he sees some men that are hung. So I believe he ends up deciding to turn around, and he runs back into those same Nazis again. This time they harass him. They even seem like they're about to go all John Wick on him and try to kill his dog, which, thank God they didn't. He stabs the leader. Before we even get into that, they're harassing him, and he's trying his best to not tear these people apart, but eventually he just ends up annihilating them, and he stabs one of the leaders through the head with like this look like it'd be a hunting knife or something like that, and he just ends up just slaughtering them all. And he just takes them all out, and that's the whole scene. I don't know much else to say. It was really choreographed very well. It was a really cool scene, and that's all I can say about it. It was one of the coolest scenes in the movie when he fights off the German Nazis or whatever. So anyway, the other Nazis come back, like a larger group of them, and they see that their men have been completely annihilated. And the general, I believe, his name is Bruno. He's like the main antagonist of this movie. He sees the gold and he just takes it. Some of the gold that was left from Ant's bag that he had. Ant sees the Nazis are coming after him on a tank, and he knows that now he has to fight back even more against these guys. Ant ends up, he's on a horseback, and he ends up, unfortunately, getting blown off his horse when his horse steps on a landmine. R.I.P. horse. This happens pretty much once we get into chapter 3 of the movie. So there's that. So basically now this sort of war is about to start between Ant and the Nazis, Bruno's team of Nazis. He sees all his, after being blown off the horse, he sees all his gold is scattered everywhere. The Nazis pretty much roll up on him, and Bruno has his men sort of like shoot him, but Ant sets off a landmine and distracts them and takes cover. Bruno makes his men pretty much go out because he's too cowardly to do it himself, and he's the general. So he has them go out and step across this big landmine field, and one of his men walks across it, and actually throws a landmine into his face and just blows him up. This is also a very violent movie, so yeah, this was pretty wild. Two other men, they get out too, and they just pretty much run right into their deaths. They blow up also, and there's that. Bruno has two of the female captives go out and sort of walk in front of their like their convoy, and to walk over landmines to see where they're at. I guess that he's willing to sacrifice these poor young women they have captive to walk over these landmines so he doesn't get out and blow himself up. So and while they're talking, Bruno says that their superiors told them they should just leave. So basically, stop trying to chase after Ant and just come back home. They are told about Ant, about his past, and about the war by, I think, the character Wolf. He's telling Bruno about this guy they're chasing. He's been into the war, and how he's warring with Russians, how he's taken out a bunch of Russians, and he sort of became a one-man death squad. So it's basically letting you know how dangerous this guy is. It's one of the movies where it's like a one-man army type of like The Equalizer or like those safe house movies where there's one older guy, middle-aged man that can just take out a whole team of people. This is sort of like what those movies are, except it's take place in the 1940s. So that's sort of interesting spin of things. I like that they kind of did that. The Russians call him the Immortal, and definitely throughout this movie, he shows how immortal he really is, because he's put into so many positions where he really should have been up out of here, but he ends up coming back like Kenny from South Park. He just doesn't die whatsoever. Bruno refuses to turn back, though. The main antagonist, Bruno, he's not going to turn back. He really wants to get Ant and get the gold. He feels that the gold that Ant has is their way of being able to get back home, because he feels that once they get home, they're going to be hung. So I guess he wants to use the gold to maybe buy their freedom, buy them out, buy them out of death, I guess. So Ant sees he has been wounded in his arm and his leg, and while sleeping, Ant sees some Nazis coming up past him, and he hides. This time around, they have dogs, so he hops under their truck, and he gets gasoline on him so the dogs can lose their scent. Once they end up realizing, where he's at, he runs from under the truck, and he ends up lighting himself on fire, which I did not see coming. But the guy is he's nicknamed the Immortal for a reason. He was able to handle being set on fire, and he ends up hopping in a lake. And then once he hops in a lake, he stays under there for quite a while. So this guy clearly must be some type of supernatural being or something, because he's been shot, stabbed, all kinds of stuff. Now he set himself on fire, and he's barely even limping. So yeah, alrighty then. The Nazis just basically sit and they wait while he's in the lake, waiting for him to come up, and somehow he just doesn't need air. Okay, so soon they hop in the lake to kill him and get his gold, and they get killed underwater by him. So there's that. That was a pretty cool sequence. One of the Nazis is so scared he just runs away, and the main antagonist Bruno decides to have him killed for that, because they say that it's punishable beyond death, retreating. But who would want to fight a guy that can basically handle being set on fire and being able to breathe underwater? So who would want to fight him? Anyway, somehow Ant ends up running away, and he gets after all the hell he's been through. Once we get in chapter 5, Ant is still traveling, and it's at night, so he decides to rest in this type of like abandoned, burned down building. And I believe he starts to have flashbacks of the war, I guess he's having. And anyway, he ends up waking up and he finds his dog finally came back to him. And this time around, I guess they're using the dog to track his scent, so the dog comes back and finds him, and they strapped a stick of dynamite to the dog. He's able to pull the dynamite off the dog before it can hurt the dog, but he ends up blowing up, like knocking himself back from the explosion in the process, and it completely knocks him out. Bruno ends up hanging him, and you would think that he would pretty much be dead now, because you literally see him sort of be hung right in front of him. And they even pay his respects. They're like, wow, this took a lot to take this guy out. So they pay their respects, then they leave. But of course, somehow, I guess he was faking his death, and he was able to somehow survive this. The only other time I've ever seen a character that was hung in a movie and he survived was Bruce Willis in that scene from Sin City. But anyway, that's another movie. But Somehow he survived this, and he used the blood, I guess, from his leg to put on the post that he was hanging from, maybe to use that as a scent to get his dog to come back to where he's at. I'm assuming that's what he did that for. I'm not sure why would he put a dirty nail into the wound of his leg to mess around and infect it, but he's immortal, so I guess he wasn't going to die either way, but yeah, I don't know. But anyway, the next morning, the vibrations of a plane that was flying over him sort of shake the post that he was hanging from. It sort of shakes it loose so he can get free. That's pure luck, because otherwise he would have been stuck there, I guess. But somehow that was able to be strong enough to shake him off his post. Two Nazi guys come up and they also try to kill him, but he escapes and they completely fail. One guy that was trying to kill him, he just sort of trips him and the guy just falls over and cracks his head open, and there's that. And the other guy that wanted to kill him, he ends up tying up. But anyway, so he survives that ordeal, and he has one last piece of gold, and he seems like feels maybe he's been through so much hell just from getting this gold, he decides to bury it. But then he ends up getting some motivation to decide, you know what, I'm going to go after these Nazis and take them all out, I guess. So he undigs the gold that he had and keeps it. He patches himself up and decides to go to war against these guys. This character would have been perfect for Inglourious Basterds because he's really like a one-man death squad. Ant, so far throughout this movie hasn't really said a word, so I just noticed that halfway through the movie he didn't really say anything, so that's pretty impressive for a main character to be able to not speak at all. Kind of remind me of that twist in Book of Eli. Spoiler alert if anybody hasn't seen it. Denzel's character was basically blind the whole time. I didn't expect that at all. That was a pretty interesting twist. This movie, being able to have the main antagonist and not say a word and still be able to connect with the different characters is a pretty interesting twist. I will say I like that. The Nazis, while they're going across like a street or whatever like that, they see one of their planes, is on the ground, and they see that one of the pilots in there is dead, and it's from one of the guys I believe that were sent to kill Ant, and they realize that Ant is still alive. And one girl that they were basically making walk across the minefield tells them this, goes on this long, really cool monologue about basically how Ant won't be stopped and how he's going to come back and take them all out. I thought that whole speech that she did was really cool, and she was right about it because he ends up coming right back. He hops on their convoy, takes out the two guys, knocks one of them out, off the convoy thing that they're on. He gets ran over by one of the men, and that whole sequence is really cool. Then we get into the chapter 6, and it's sort of named after that quote that the governor said on The Walking Dead. And chapter 6 is entitled "Kill Them All," and that's essentially basically what they do. And this time around, Anne is getting help from the women to take out the Nazis now. The women that they were holding captive and doing whatever to. And the General Bruno, he ends up deciding to finally send his sidekick to fight Ant. And we know that wasn't going to work. He spent the whole time basically right on the side of Bruno. Now Bruno decides, hey, I want to see you fight, because clearly Bruno isn't trying to do anything himself. So they fight, and Ant pretty much completely wolfs behind, but he decides to show mercy on him and not kill him because he really wants to go after Bruno. But the ladies, they decide to not really have so much mercy on him. So that's all we see from that scene. Bruno meets with, I believe this was like his boss. I'm not sure who this last guy was. Maybe it was one of his higher ups, one of the big bosses or whatever like that. He ends up having Bruno kill another sidekick that he was working with the whole movie, and they hop on a plane. But Ant was able to intervene, and he hops on the side of the plane, as we saw in a trailer, with his axe, and somehow he's able to hide to stay on the side of this plane and somehow get inside of the plane just from his axe thing that he had. I mean, at this point, this guy is basically a superhero because somehow he was able to hang on the side of a plane and get inside of it, on some Mission Impossible type stuff. So the big boss, he's bleeding from the neck from when I think Ant was shooting up the plane trying to stop them. So he already wasn't gonna make it. And Ant gets on a plane. He ends up finally fighting Bruno. Bruno is beating him really bad, but Ant ends up tying him to a missile, drops the missile out of the plane, and while Bruno was flying, he's giving him the F bomb, and and he went out in a pretty epic way. I'm not gonna lie, it was really cool villain death. The big boss or whoever it was that was flying a plane, he just pretty much dies, and then the plane ends up going down. I'm thinking this is the end of Ant, and it isn't. He somehow was able to survive this. He really is the immortal. And after the plane crashed, he was still intact, and he was literally digging himself out of some type of mud. Like I said, the character is definitely immortal because he survived so much. Anyway, the ladies come back with a tank and they have Wolf tied to the side of it, which is Bruno's, of course, sidekick. And they run across some. I'm not sure who these guys were. I guess they were the good guys. So they're able to get out of the clutches of the Nazis and be able to get some help. So while turning in a Nazi. So that's how that worked. The final chapter comes, and Ant, like I said, he's immortal. He was able to survive everything, and we see that he rides into a town with his dog, and he goes into building and gives him the gold to cash into bills, and he finally says his last words. That's what he wanted them to do, and that was it. So this movie's about like an hour and 30 minutes or something long. This is a really good movie. A lot of action based. Wasn't usually the type of movie I would typically see, but I think it was pretty good. I will give this movie. I would give it a 3 out of 4. I would say. It's pretty good. A lot of action in it. Really cool story. I don't know. It was pretty good. I don't know what I can say about it. It was a really cool, interesting little small movie. Of course, nobody in this movie I recognize from anything else. Like these actors were maybe from another country possibly, but it was really good. A lot of action in it, and like I said, I still don't know a whole lot about this character Ant. I can't even pronounce his name. I don't even barely remember even them saying his name in the movie. I thought from the title of his name was Sisu, but yeah, this dude was pretty much practically immortal. He just survived everything they threw at him. But it was a really good movie, though. A lot of action packed, a lot of cool set pieces. Cinematography was phenomenal. And yeah, so this movie was really good. This is obviously a spoiler review, so I just said the whole movie. So if you want to check this out, go ahead. Sisu, really good, 3 out of 4. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, share the video for all things new movie reviews coming out this year, and TV show reviews and album reviews. And thanks for watching my video.